First at 9 this Sunday, the 20th of July 2025. Booted, Senior Deputy Inspector General of Police Dilith Javir, who served as Director of State Intelligence during the devastating Easter Sunday attacks, dismissed from police service by the National Police Commission. Call for justice. Spokesperson for the Archdiocese, Father Jude Krishanta, criticizes past governments for neglecting calls to prosecute the dismissed Senior Deputy Inspector General. SJB parliamentarian Nizam Karyapur to make a special revelation regarding the deadly Easter Sunday attacks in Parliament. The tale of reforms. Trade unions criticize new education reforms slated to be implemented next year. New reforms by the government should not be disrupted, says the former Director General of the National Institute of Education. Soaring high. Sri Lanka welcomes over 1.2 million tourists by mid-July.
Men are the tools. This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Adrisingha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world, brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, in your top story tonight, the National Police Commission dismissed from police service Senior Deputy Inspector General of Police Dilith Javir, who served as Director of State Intelligence during the devastating Easter Sunday attacks of 2019. Javir's dismissal comes off the heels of a disciplinary inquiry launched against him by the National Police Commission, which followed a Supreme Court mandate where the now dismissed SDIG was ordered to pay 75 million rupees in compensation to victims of the Easter Sunday attacks. On Easter Sunday, the 21st of April 2019, a series of coordinated bomb blasts ripped through Sri Lanka, claiming 272 lives, injuring hundreds of others, and forever scarring all Easter Sunday festivities with grim memories. When the devastating attacks shook Sri Lanka, at the helm of Sri Lanka's State Intelligence Service was Senior Deputy Inspector General of Police Dilith Javir. In the aftermath of the attacks and amid much public outrage, authorities began to probe how perpetrators slipped through the Sri Lanka State Intelligence Service. During such investigations, authorities uncovered that the State Intelligence Service failed to act upon and share with law enforcement authorities prior foreign intelligence received on the 4th of April 2019 regarding the suicide bombings. This serious lapse on the part of the State Intelligence Service was a key observation stressed upon by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. The Commission recommended legal action under Sri Lanka's penal legislation against SDIG Dilith Javir, who served as the then Director of the State Intelligence Service, citing his failure to duly consider and act upon the credible foreign intelligence, which if utilized properly could have saved the 272 lives. Against this backdrop, the Supreme Court mandated that SDIG Javir pays 75 million rupees in compensation to the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks. This verdict was rendered by Sri Lanka's apex court after considering 13 fundamental rights petitions filed over the Easter Sunday attacks. Meanwhile, the Police Commission on October 26, 2023 filed charges against SDIG Javir for dereliction of duty. The charges prompted a formal disciplinary inquiry against the former SIS director on March 21, 2024. Consequently, the Commission sent Senior DIG Dilith Javir on compulsory leave until the inquiry against him draws to a close. After months of deliberation, the final report of the disciplinary inquiry conducted by a 3-member tribunal was submitted to the Police Commission on the 4th of July this year. Taking into account the seriousness of the offence, the National Police Commission, at its meeting held on the 17th of July this year, officially decided to dismiss Senior DIG Dilith Javir from service with immediate effect.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Yadia, ලොව වැඩියෙන්ම අලෙවි වන electric scooterය Avance Auto වෙතින්.
Now, on the same topic, spokesperson for the Archdiocese, Father Jude Krishanta, hailed SDIG Dilith Javir's dismissal from police service as a step in the right direction. However, Father Krishanta further urged the government to prosecute SDIG Javir along with former Presidents Maithripala Sirisena, Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe. Meanwhile, in the wake of Dilith Javir's dismissal from police service, SJB MP President's Counsel Nizam Karyapur claims that he will make a special revelation in Parliament backed by a set of documents in his possession.
Dilith Javir මහත්මයා කියලා කියන්නේ ප්‍රධාන
Nilantha Javardhana is the main suspect responsible for the Easter Sunday attacks. We urged 3 governments over 6 years to file legal action against him in court. All 3 preceding governments failed to act on our plea. We are grateful to President Anura Dissanayake for removing Nilantha Javardhana from police service. If Nilantha Javardhana is produced before court, we will be able to know for sure if former President Maithripala Sirisena left for Singapore knowing full well that these attacks were about to transpire. If that is the case, then for whose intentions were these attacks launched? I think that an intelligence chief who failed to act on prior intelligence, which could have prevented the attack, must be given the capital punishment. We urge the incumbent president to produce former presidents Maithripala Sirisena, Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe before court and to get down to the root of this matter.
මෛත්‍රීපාලව ගෝඨාභයව රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහව ගේන්න අධිකරණයට ගෙනල්ලා මේකේ සුලමුල හොයන්න.
පෞද්ගලික දවසක විමල් රත්නායක අමාත්‍යවරයා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේදී සඳහන් කරනවා රවි සෙනවිරත්න සහ ශානි අබේවික්‍රම මහතුරුන්ට තනතුරු ලබා දීමේදී කාදිනල් උන්වහන්සේගේ ඉල්ලීමක් මත තමයි මේක කළේ කියලා. මෙහි සත්‍යතාවක් තියනවද?
දැන් මන් දන්න ආකාරයෙන්
As far as I know, the Cardinal did not request those appointments specifically. However, the Cardinal requested the reappointment of investigators who probed the Easter Sunday attacks and who were later transferred during Gotabaya Rajapaksa's regime.
ශානි අබේසේකර මෙතුමාට මේ සම්බන්ධවම චෝදනාවක් තියෙනවා නිලන්ත ජයවර්ධන මෙතුමාට. කොහොමද ඔබතුමාලා දකින්නේ ශානිට තියෙන චෝදනාව?
ඔව් ශානි අබේසේකරට
Of course, Shani Abesekara could have similar allegations as outlined in many reports. However, the Cardinal will not influence any decision taken regarding the officer in question. The Cardinal will also refrain from passing judgment on the officer's character. So the government must decide whether or not they intend to appoint such officers to these positions.
මේ සම්බන්ධව නිවැරදි නිලධාරීන්ව පත් කරනවද නැද්ද කියන දේ.
In the meantime, SJB parliamentarian, President's Counsel M. Nizam Karyapar also made a startling revelation regarding the Easter Sunday attacks.
පාස්ක ප්‍රහාර සම්බන්ධයෙන් විශේෂ
I am obliged to make a special revelation pertaining to the Easter Sunday attacks. My revelations will be backed by documents in my possession. Certain government ministers might be troubled by my revelation.
ප්‍රශ්නයක් විය හැකි.
මේක මේ වාණ්ඩුවේ ඉන්න
Of course, I will make this statement in Parliament. Since this is a special revelation, I cannot do it today.
හෙළිදරව්වක් මට අද කියන්න බෑ.
Arpico Next Gen. Make the leap to faster sleep.
Now in other news, Minister of Women and Child Affairs Saroja Savitri Paul Raj called for the reformation of early childhood education from one that is heavy on theory to one that is more concept-centric. She made these remarks while attending a ceremony held today at Vihara Mahadevi Park in Colombo.
As part of the National Week on Early Childhood Care and Development, the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs launched an activity-based program for children. The national event, organized by the National Secretariat for Early Childhood Development, took place this morning at Vihara Mahadevi Park in Colombo. It was held under the patronage of the Minister of Women and Child Affairs Saroja Savitri Paul Raj and Deputy Minister Dr. Namal Sudarshana.
During the early childhood years, our focus shouldn't be on teaching subjects, but rather on nurturing the kind of knowledge children naturally absorb through their 5 senses. One of the biggest concerns we see today is that children at their tender age are being taught subjects like mathematics. But what we should really be teaching are mathematical concepts, not theories. The same applies to language and science. We shouldn't rush to teach theoretical content, but instead help children understand the concepts behind them. What's happening now is that many parents look for preschools that focus heavily on theory. And in response, our preschool education system has evolved to meet the demand. We see consequences of these decisions only later on. The number of students failing subjects like mathematics, languages, and sciences at the GCE ordinary level exams continues to rise. That's why we believe early childhood education must shift to a concept-centric approach. If we make this change, we will strengthen the entire education system and contribute to the country's long-term sustainable development.
In further news on the subject of education, the government's decision to discontinue history and aesthetics as compulsory subjects for grades 10 and 11 sparked widespread public debate, drawing concerns from educators and the opposition. Meanwhile, Minister of Plantation and Community Infrastructure Samantha Vidyaratna asserts that a country cannot move forth without the study of history and adds that the government is merely following the election manifesto.
The new education reforms proposed to be implemented from 2026 have sparked impassioned public discourse with certain stakeholder organizations, including unions of principals and teachers, opposing the proposed reforms. They claim that the new reforms aim to delist history and aesthetics as compulsory subjects for students of grades 10 and 11. The All Ceylon United Teachers Union claims that declassifying history as a compulsory subject will hinder the development of patriotic feelings within students. Meanwhile, the Teachers Union claims that delisting aesthetics of compulsory status will hinder students' ability to appreciate art and literature, impeding on the development of their cultural identity. The Association of Educational Professionals, meanwhile, revealed that the removal of history and aesthetics of compulsory status is only a precursor to more controversial reforms, which could be as serious as removing religion off the school syllabus completely.
These matters must be discussed before implemented. Arbitrary decisions should not be taken on matters such as these. Who are they holding discussions with? They discuss these matters exclusively with government MPs and officials of the Education Ministry. Then they conduct meetings to inform other individuals of these reforms. We thought the NPP government had an agenda. But what they are doing at the moment is reintroducing reforms initially proposed during Gotabaya Rajapaksa's tenure.
Meanwhile, yesterday, Registrar of the Askariya chapter, Dr. Madagama Dhammananda Thera, asserted that history must remain a compulsory subject for all students. The senior cleric's statements followed concerns raised in this regard by MP Dayasiri Jayasekara, who called on Dr. Madagama Dhammananda Thera to pay his respects. Meanwhile, a group of history teachers met the chief prelate of the Askariya chapter, Most Venerable Warkagoda Sri Gnana Ratanathero. While seeking blessings, the teachers discussed with the top cleric the government's attempts at naming history as an elective subject. Speaking at the meeting, Deputy Registrar of the Askariya chapter, Venerable Narampanave Anandathero, reminisced a recent meeting with President Dissanayake and revealed that the President was in fact keen on letting history remain a compulsory subject. The Thero further noted that a certain obscure force seems to be against that decision. However, the former Director General of the National Institute of Education and a former Secretary to the Ministry of Higher Education, Dr. Sunil Jayanta Navaratna, states that the new reforms by the government should not be disrupted. He further urges all parties to support the reforms, hailing it as a national requirement. He further asserts that given the increasing demands of a rapidly evolving world, children must be provided with an education that integrates both humanistic understanding and technical knowledge. The government's attempt at classifying history and aesthetics as electives continued to claim the spotlight of the political discourse today.
Children around the world are taught history of their respective countries. The ruling party's history might not be the best, but our country has a proud history. So clearly the children of the country should be taught history. History is already a compulsory subject for students facing the ordinary level examination. But the government wishes to remove it from the syllabus. They want to forget the history of their party in 1971, 1988 and 1989. They wish to forget Karl Marx, Lenin and Vijay Veera. They have already forgotten about Vijay Veera. They have replaced Karl Marx, Lenin and Vijay Veera with Trump, Modi and Ranil Wickremesinghe. Every citizen must know the country's basic history. Certain groups and forces wish to wipe that knowledge out. We should not let that happen. They claim that we intend to do away with history and aesthetics. However, they were in fact responsible for the country's dark history. The NPP as a political movement has a deep bond with literature, art and craft. That is apparent through our victory anthems, poster art and theatrical performances. It is impossible to build a future disregarding the past. Therefore, history must be studied. That much is obvious to all. We are merely following our election manifesto. Opposition leader and leader of the Samaga Jana Balawege, Sajith Premadasa, criticizes the government's apparent policy reversal, pointing out that the government that once vowed to safeguard farmers has now implemented measures to privatize economic centers of the country. Speaking at a meeting today, Premadasa condemned the government's new education reforms, accusing the government of attempting to dismantle school education.
A meeting with the leader of the opposition and the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Sajith Premadasa, and the residents of the Talawa area of Tambutegama was held today in Talawa. During the meeting, discussions were also held concerning the issues and concerns of the residents.
The government that once vowed to protect the interests of the farmers is now initiating steps to privatize the country's economic centers. What happened to their earlier promises? They assured farmers access to fertilizer and fuel and even vowed to guarantee the price of paddy. Didn't the JVP bring these proposals before Parliament previously? Today, the same government is attempting to dismantle school education system through ill-conceived reforms. As a nation, we oppose these changes that threaten to push the country towards further decline. As the opposition, we stand firmly with the people and will support every effort to resist these destructive measures. Now, Agriculture Minister K.D. Lalkanta's recent remarks against self-sufficient agriculture and the possibility of importing rice has sparked outrage within the farming community. Farmers say the government has failed to intervene in the purchase of paddy even as the Yalla season harvest nears its end. Although a guaranteed price has been set for both dry and wet paddy, many claim that the state-run paddy marketing board warehouses remain closed. The government has started buying paddy through small and medium-scale mill owners with credit support. However, farmers say selling to private millers is still more profitable due to high transport costs. Now, leader of the Sarvajana Balaya, parliamentarian Dilith Javir, says the current government has failed to initiate programs that generate sustainable wealth for the country and instead continues to focus on distributing subsidies. He expressed these views yesterday during the establishment of the Karandini Sarvajana Sabha.
The formation of the Karandiniya Sarvajana Sabha, set up under the Sarvajana Balaya's concept of Sarvajana Sabha, took place yesterday afternoon under the patronage of the party leader MP Dilith Javir.
If you look at our current welfare plan, the direct cost of the Assasum program is 164 billion rupees. In addition, we spend another 65 billion rupees on benefits for the elderly. Up to now, to fund Assasuma, we have had to borrow 25% of its cost from the World Bank on top of the country's tax revenue. Even the World Bank is now confused. Nobody wants to help a debtor set up a business, generate income or gain market access so that he can repay the loan with interest. No one seems to be discussing such solutions. Instead, the government continues to promise more welfare. People must understand that there is no real relief in this system. Why? Because to sustain this welfare model, the government taxes the very benefit it provides, indirectly by increasing taxes on everyday goods and services. The resulting deficit is then covered by further borrowing. Although we were born in a blessed country, we are now living in a deeply troubled state. Politicians avoid addressing these issues openly, especially the current administration. Rather than speaking the truth, they rely more heavily on deception than even previous regimes to continue in politics.
The Department of Meteorology has issued a red warning for strong winds and rough seas in the areas extending from Puttlam to Pothaville via Colombo, Galle and Hambantota. These sea areas are expected to be rough or very rough, with strong gusty winds reaching up to 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. According to the Met Department, wave heights may increase up to 2.5 meters to 3 meters in the sea areas of the coast extending from Puttlam to Pothaville via Colombo, Galle and Hambantota. The department has advised the naval and fishing communities to not venture out to sea from Puttlam to Pothaville via Colombo, Galle and Hambantota for the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, showers are expected to occur at times in the western, Sabaragamu and central provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Fairly heavy falls, about 75 millimeters, are likely at some places in the Sabaragamu province and in the districts including Nur Elia, Kandy, Galle and Mathura. Welcome back. Now in your local business news, Sri Lanka has attracted 1,266,809 tourists as of the 16th of July this year, as it continues to chip away at the target of securing 3 million tourist arrivals for the year. This figure includes the 98,765 tourist arrivals recorded between the 1st and the 16th of July this year. According to data from the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the highest number of tourist arrivals for the month of July was recorded on the 12th of July with 6,952 tourists visiting the island. India continues to be Sri Lanka's top source market with 19,688 tourists visiting the country, while the United Kingdom trails in second with 10,653 British tourists visiting the country between the 1st and the 16th of July. A significant number of tourist arrivals were also recorded from China, the Netherlands, Australia and France. Now, in your international business news, China's exports of rare earth minerals to the United States in June soared more than 7 times their May level, marking a sharp recovery in the flow of critical minerals used in electric vehicles and wind turbines after a Sino-US trade deal. Outbound shipments to the United States from the world's largest producer of rare earth minerals surged to 353 metric tons in June, up a whopping 688% from May.
The recent development came after pacts reached in June to resolve issues around shipments of rare earth minerals and magnets to the United States. China, which provides more than 90% of the global supply of rare earth magnets, decided in early April to add several rare earth items to its export restriction list in retaliation for US tariffs. The subsequent sharp fall in shipments in April and May, due to the lengthy time required to secure export licenses, had upset the global supply chain, forcing some automakers outside China to hold partial production due to a rare earth shortage. In total, China exported 3,188 tons of rare earth permanent magnets globally last month, up 157.5% from 1,238 tons in May, although the June volume was still 38.1% lower than the corresponding month in 2024. Shipments of magnets are likely to recover further in July as more exporters obtained licenses in June. During the first half of 2025, exports of rare earth magnets fell 18.9% on the year to 2,319 tons.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Ada Derana, the Sri Lankan brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.